This is Sunny Hostin. I guess she's one of the members of that horrible show, The View, right?
She makes the absurd claim that that she said poor people, minorities, elderly can't get ID. All of that are lies. Everybody can get ID, and in fact, minorities need ID for the same things all regular white people need IDs for, to identify themselves, for their jobs, for the hospital, which always asks for your ID, for welfare programs, whatever it is,
Well,
they
let's
all
listen to what
The
she
require
reason
says.
ID.
Democrats don't want voter
Let's hear to what she says.
the reason Democrats don't want voter ID is because they make it much more difficult for elderly people, people that don't travel, don't have a passport, poor people.
It's always they have these talking points, right? Isn't that like you were just basically saying that?
Yeah, like I said, I don't have to even hear her. I know that. And by the way, you don't need a passport to vote. You don't need a passport for ID. In fact, passports are not the common go-to for people with ID. It's
Right?
usually right. It's going to be maybe your school ID, driver's license. In some states, you can even use your hunting license. You just need something with your name that they can tell it's you, your birth certificate,
Right.
social security card. Any of these things are ways in which we could have voter ID. You don't have to have a passport.
But they're the go-to. It's always like the poor people. We're idiots or something.
Don't have cars,
Well,
don't
we're
have
not
driver's
poor, but
licenses. So it's sort of a vestige of, I think, post-slavery laws where
It's always you always go back to these kind of things.
and she's so disgusting too, because if you've ever read about post-slavery laws, I have. She's completely absurd to say that they are equivalent in any fashion, form, or way whatsoever. Because first of all, even slaves had ways to identify themselves. They had cards when they went to vote after, Reconstruction, after the Civil War. And although some blacks actually were able to vote before then, there were free men, free blacks in a lot of states. You can read the history about that. Anybody wants to know, maybe we can do a story on that. I can
Yeah.
give you guys the books and history that I've been reading. And with my kids, our kids, I can tell you that blacks were voting before the Civil War, but even after that, when more of them were, when they went to the polls, they had ID. There wasn't a question of they had to show who they were to vote. So that's nonsense. They had voting, ways to show who they were even back then. But more importantly, they're not equivalent, because what they would do, Fletcher, I don't know if you even read this, but they would say things like, "Oh, you want to vote? Tell me how many." You have to answer some questions
Right.
first. And the questions would be, "Tell me how many bubbles are in a bar of soap." You can document this. These are written places. You can read the history. In fact, one of the books is called Traveling Black. I think it's a historian at Harvard who documents this, that these were some of the questions. They would ask nonsense questions of black would-be voters to say, oh, well, you can't vote. They would sometimes also say, well, prove that your grandfather was able to vote, or prove that your grandfather owned land, or some things like this, to stop them from voting, which was no longer a rule. Okay. They would let white people come and vote with just themselves, but then black citizens would come. So for her to say these are like post-slavery laws, it's such an insult to the people who really did try to be good citizens and wanted to vote and were treated so horribly. When we're saying everyone, regardless of your color, race, or background, or whether your granddaddy owned land, or if you know the answer to how many bubbles are in a bar of soap, should just show who they are when they come to vote. It's enough that she should be dragged off. That's such a terrible thing for her to say.
Well, she's got more to say. Let's see. Maybe she corrects it after this sentence. 'Cause that was a outrageous sentence.
they where black people had to prove their right to vote, and oftentimes they couldn't vote because they couldn't pass some crazy test, or they didn't have the appropriate ID. It also affects women that are married. Maybe your passport reflects something that's different on your birth certificate or
She's
on your
so
driver's
stupid.
license. So
She's
This
so
is so
stupid.
stupid.
She's so stupid. First of all, no one's using their passport to vote. You're not required to show citizenship. You're required to show who you are. You do have to be a citizen to vote, and that's why they have voting rolls. And you have to register to vote as a citizen. But when you go to the voting rolls, you don't have to do that. You can just have shown at, your birth certificate or whatever, your social security number, whatever it is, to show that you were born in the United States or naturalized, right? Your papers that way would work as well. But when you go to vote, no one has to show a passport. So she needs to stop with that. As far as women being able to vote with their maiden names, I think we've settled this over, I don't know, 100 years now.
What?
I mean, women have been voting since the 1920s, I believe.
No.
And they have for a long time taking their husband's names in marriage. I don't think is difficult, or they don't have the same name. All you need to have is ID showing your name. And guess what? If you are a woman and you have a difficult time being able to show who you are, then maybe you shouldn't be voting.
What?
I mean, if it's so difficult for you to get, change your name. I changed my name. Most women do, or have a hyphenated name. But the fact is, they don't even hold you to that. If you're able to show if you go to the voting rolls and you've changed your name since you last voted, and you're married, it's the most common situation. They literally accommodate that. I mean, I think it even happened for me when you first get married and you haven't changed all your papers over, and you go vote and you show, here's my marriage license. I got married last month. Here's my ID with my old name. Here's my, marriage certificate. They let you vote.
What?
That's not an issue. That's such a non-issue.
No, you're just crazy. She's right. Let's see.
So really the bottom line is voter suppression. And I agree with him 100%. It's a brilliant notion that less voter ID laws allows more people to vote. And most democracies do it that way. We're the only ones that really don't do it that way.
Right. I mean, I think it's been...
Okay, you got to stop it there, Fletcher, and let's look at the chart. So she says most democracies don't have voter ID. Let's look at the countries, and I will read them for emphasis, that do have voter ID that are known to be democracies: Iceland, Sweden, New Zealand, Denmark, Canada, Ireland, Switzerland, Finland, Australia, Luxembourg, Netherlands, Germany, Austria, Malta, UK, Spain, Mauritius, Uruguay, Japan, Italy, France, South Korea, Costa Rica, Botswana, Portugal, Estonia, Israel, Czech Republic, India, Taiwan, Chile, Belgium, Cyprus, Slovenia, Lithuania, South Africa, Jamaica, Latvia, Slovakia, Greece, Panama, Bulgaria, Indonesia, Argentina, Poland, Brazil, Ghana, Croatia, Hungary, Colombia, Peru, El Salvador, Romania, Serbia, Hong Kong, Singapore, Georgia, Honduras, Ecuador, Bangladesh, Ukraine, Bolivia, Turkey, Kenya, Thailand, Lebanon, Nicaragua, Venezuela, Palestine, Pakistan, Iraq, and Haiti all have voter ID laws, and all of will put your butt in jail if you are not a citizen and vote in their elections.
Okay, now hold up on this, because I think what she's basically getting at, because there was a bit of a controversy with this homeboy whose name is Elie Mystal. Is that right?
That's what his name should be.
Yeah, so
he's a fat rap artist. Elie Mystal.
So it's funny because let's bring it back. So we just saw that South Africa has voter ID laws, right?
Yeah.
Right. He's saying that South Africa system, we should replace our constitution, right? And he says it should be replaced with the South African constitution because that's the best. This is very short. Listen to this.
South Africa got over apartheid. Did they just go back to their Afrikaner racist constitution and be like, oh, we just need a couple of amendments. We just need a couple of changes here to make it work? No, they threw the whole thing out and started again, this time asking everybody. Wow. This time having a completely new delegation of all of the people of South Africa, not just the white folks, but not no white folks. And they came up with a new constitution. It's one of the reasons why the South African constitution is generally thought of as one of the best constitutions in the world.
Which is not true, by the way, but let's just finish listening.
And ours continues to be a piece of crap.
So what laws would you kick out immediately? What laws are you saying it needs to get the fuck out of here?
Yeah, so the first one I have in my book is that I want to eliminate every single voter registration law.
Boom. Every single, we just saw what she's saying, that voter registration is used to all this crap, right? he's saying let's just use the South African, uh, you know, ways of the Constitution, right? And what did we just read? Who's there is right there. I'm sorry. What was that? Countries with voter ID. I'm sorry, right under Lithuania. What is that?
South Africa.
That's South Africa right
And
there.
I believe if you went over there en masse, like we've had illegal immigrants come here and try to vote, good luck with that. Good
Yeah,
luck
good
with
luck
that.
with keeping South Africa, South Africa.
And he
Right?
shouldn't be listened to because, as Sir Glenn said, I haven't seen anyone sporting a comb like that since the 70s. I don't know why he wears his hair like that. And no one, you're right, has been doing that for a while. I mean, he should cut it down. I don't have a problem with you sporting a fro if you want to have a fro, but come on, man.
No, it says
There's
but
limits.
he did go further on this because he did talk about that there is no thing as voter fraud. That's I didn't know that you did you know that? There's no
Well,
such thing as
listen,
fraud. We just heard that there was voter fraud, right? They already are prosecuting. He says there isn't.
I want to eliminate every single voter registration law. All of them in every state are bad, right? That's different from voter eligibility. If you're eligible to vote, you should just be able to rock up to the polls and vote. So we could just get rid of all of them. We could just get rid of all of them. And the people will say like, oh, well, we can't do that because of voter fraud, right? Well, first of all, and I know this is going to be hard for some listeners who spend a lot of time listening to.
he's wearing a comb in his head. I'm sorry. I can't believe you don't want to talk about that. He's wearing a comb. I'm sorry. This is so distracting. It's not just that he has an afro. Isn't there on the left? That's an actual afro
Yeah,
pick in
he's
his
got
hair.
an afro pick.
He's wearing it
Yeah.
while on a televised podcast.
Yeah, well, he's trying to prove that he's down.
Okay. All right.
Fraud
Proceed.
does not exist.
I loved how you broke that down in the book. Expound, please.
Right?
Yeah.
Voter fraud just doesn't exist. It's not a real thing. We shouldn't make laws based on protecting us from things that don't exist.
What are you talking about?
We were just listening to that. We were just basically saying, like, hold up, let's actually listen.
Foundation has a very good project, and it's obviously right leaning, where they're studying all cases of fraud. I looked at it before we were here. There's only been 24 cases since 2003 of somebody who's a non-citizen trying to vote. Now, those are people caught. So this would be incredibly dramatic if it was even 1,000 people.
Oh no, Jason, it's more than 1,000. I've seen it. I've seen the data myself, and it's more than 1,000 in just a couple of states. I mean, it is shockingly bad. And this is the tip of the iceberg, guys. It's the tip of the iceberg.
That's it right there. In other words, that's the two shades right there.
But you don't even have to even do that, because we already know it's a lie, because already in every state we have seen somebody get arrested for voter fraud.
Right.
And it's not only illegal aliens who do it. There actually are people who shouldn't be voting or who vote twice. There's a woman I recall reading about in the paper, I think in the last election, not this most recent one, but she was charged with felonies because she was voting like all over town. You can't do that either. So the idea that that voting fraud doesn't exist is absurd. Of course it exists. I mean, there's people who lose their right to vote for different reasons. Sometimes it might be because they committed a felony and are in a state where they don't get that right back. Some states will restore someone's civil rights, like to vote, and others do not. If you don't have the right to vote, then you are committing fraud if you do. So the idea, he says, well, if you're eligible to vote, then you should just be able to rock up to the polls and vote. But that's the whole point, dummy. We don't know if they're eligible. They need to be on the roll. They need to register. And then we need to know, I mean, this dummy would not throw a party wherever he is, right? And, have it be open, like say by invitation only, because you can only feed so many people, say, it's a party, like you having a private event, maybe, let's say it's a wedding and, you're busy. So you have people at the front door with a list, right? With a list, you're going to check it against them. That's just basic common sense. And because in the case of people, who have it in their best interest to sneak in, you might ask, maybe not at a party, because, how many people really care to go to your wedding? But many people might want to change the rules of the United States so they get more benefits. So there is more need to be like, let me see your ID. I mean, I've been places that are not, like when I go to a hotel, and I'm invited to say, this has happened many times, right? You and I are invited sometimes to places, and they paid our hotel ahead of time for us to speak or what have you, right, Fletcher?
Right.
When we show up to the hotel and I say, hi, it's Ursula, and it's Fletcher, and they are like, oh, great, yeah, it looks like we have you here for a couple of nights. Can I see your ID? Yeah, they're checking to make sure we are
That's
who we say we
racist.
are. And it's not like they're not doing it because, they necessarily, they want to make sure we are who we say we are. And then they hand over a key to something valuable, right? Which is the room, because once I'm in there, I could charge to the room, we could break it up. We could, it's valuable. So they want to make sure, even though it's already prepaid, who are you? Let me see. And in some cases, even give me your credit card to make sure. So that's all we're saying. It's not, it's not that big a deal. It's not that big a deal for him to say that. And for, and I'm going to say, I think it's kind of disgusting for a Black man to stand up there and say the Constitution is crap, because it's not.
No, it's so ridiculous and disingenuous, right?
Please read Sir Glenn's comment. He's on fire today. He's on fire. It's cracking me up.
If you have a mouth and teeth, you should be able to roll up on McDonald's and get free food.
That's the exact same
roll
thing.
Up.
Okay, that is so true. That's the exact same thing. Like he's saying, if you are able to be a warm body and you can get to the polls, you should be able to roll up and vote. It's the same as saying, if you have a mouth and teeth, you should be able to roll up to McDonald's and get free food. No. McDonald's is not entitled to give you free food without being eligible for the food that they have, which is to pay for it, which means you have to have some legitimate means of giving them, real cash, real credit card, okay, or some other means, Apple Pay, what have you, EBT, if they take it. You can't just roll up because you want to and have the ability to eat food, be able to get it. It's the same thing. You're in a country, because that's what I think. That's why I think it's a great analogy, Sir Glenn. Thank you. Because this mystical, that's what he's saying, is almost like if you are in the country, however you got here, and you're able to get to the polls, then you should be able to vote.
Thanks for watching. Like, share, and subscribe.